you guys, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on Keeping You a Secret by Julie Ann Peters. So I'm kind of changing up how I call my reviews. I'm calling it a tea talk, so I'm going to have a nice little tea mug. And we're just filled with tea because, you know, when you talk about things and you tell people about things you don't like and things you do like, you spill the tea, so hence tea talk. Yeah, it was pretty clever in my head. But without further ado, let's just jump right into the video. So I know I didn't upload last week. These two videos were supposed to go up last week, but unfortunately I was sick. So here we are with kind of these videos, and I'll be playing catch up, but it's fine with like the videos that I have planned, but it's fine. Winter break's coming soon, and then I'll be able to upload like 4 videos in a week to make up for it, and it'll be great, it'll be grand. We'll have 0 issues, and I'll be back on track with this like filming schedule of mine and all the videos I do have planned. But I'm just gonna shut right up. So for those of you guys who don't know, Keeping You a Secret by Julie Ann Peters is about this girl named Holland. She is in her senior year of high school and is basically set for everything in life. She's supposed to go to this big fancy school. She's, I think, student body president. She's not so great at swim club, so there's a flaw there. But her mom like loves her. She's like she has this great boyfriend she's been with for years, and they have plans together. And she's like this paradigm of perfection. And then Cece, who is a new student from Washington, she comes down to wherever she lives. She comes down from wherever she lives and kind of shakes up Holland's world and kind of gets her to realize, hey, I am not the sexuality that I've always thought I've been. This is kind of something new for me, and she doesn't spend as much. She spends a little time questioning it, but she ends up ultimately falling for Cece, and then everything hits the fan. And it's just it's basically what you would expect out of a 2007, 2008-ish coming out novel. There's a lot here to unpack. So my first thoughts on the book was it seemed really interesting. I saw it at Grassroots, which is like a secondhand bookstore, and I thought, I haven't read a lot of contemporary LGBT QIA novels as of late, or at all really. I've read a lot of like fantasy ones, which I personally enjoy more. I'm more of a fantasy kind of girl, but I need to branch out. And a lot of like the contemporary LGBTQIA reads that I have heard about so far feature mainly gay men, not so much gay women. So this was kind of something I was excited for, and I thought I was gonna really enjoy it because of the title, and it's something that seemed a little more, that I was expecting to be a little more realistic and a little more well-rounded in terms of writing. So that was kind of my first thoughts on it. But let's move on to the things I did like. So as for things I did like, I really liked how kind of the layers of how homophobia is internalized and how it manifests. It's not always a physical act of violence or a derogatory curse word or like the things that we today know. It's a lot of like more subtle homophobia, like asking for an agenda, like what their agenda is for having a like LGBT club or a queer club, or even glaring at her from afar or not looking at her or thinking that she just needs to be with the right guy, which still happens, but it's a different kind of homophobia that we see today, as this was written, I believe, in 2003, and the copyright was redone in 2007. Same with the cover in 2011. So there's a lot of like different ways of how homophobia manifests, and it's not always outright. We see it also with Holland's mother. She never outwardly says that she doesn't like Cece because she's gay. She doesn't want Cece to come over because she is. She doesn't let Cece touch her younger sister, or she tells Holland that she needs to find better friends. So it's all these like kind of subtle ways that homophobia is manifested. And I thought that was really interesting to see, just because in this day and age, homophobia isn't it's internalized, but it's not manifested in such subtle manners as it used to be. Now it's a lot more outright, and we see a lot more violence, both physical, verbal, mental, and emotional violence towards it. So to see that like stark comparison was very interesting. I also enjoyed how this novel kind of showed all the possible reactions to being out, or coming out, and how like even like in today it's the same kind of reactions you'll get from when this book was published, which was in 2003. In the novel, we see a lot of like the internalized homophobia. We see her friend kind of talk down about Cece. We see a lot of the outside the school kind of pick on her and tease her for being out, and we see Cece kind of take that with a like shoulder square, chin up high kind of notion, which I think is very brave coming from that time. It wasn't nearly as accepted. Even in the book, she said there was like maybe like 2 people that were out, a handful, like maybe 7 that she didn't know about, and she never wondered. She always thought that there were no quote unquote gays in her school, but I'm gonna get to that in a second. I also liked how reading it in 2017 shows me of kind of how far we've gotten in terms of how the LGBTQIA community is treated as a whole in society. We see a lot more openness towards it, a lot more acceptance, and we see a lot more safe places for us to go to, and kind of measures that we all have to take, and how that we always, what's the word I'm looking for? The measures we have to take, kind of the safety precautions. Like, yeah, all the resources we've gained throughout these like 10 years since this book has come out, or 13, yeah, throughout these 13 years since this book has come out. And I think it's such a wonderful change to read about, just because like here there's like maybe 2 people who are out, and even then they're not outwardly out, if that makes sense. But in this day and age, we see a lot more gay couples, we see a lot more trans teens, trans adults, and we see a lot more acceptance for intersex, for non-binary, though there needs to be more for asexuality and all that. So it's really nice to see how how wide this kind of tunnel vision of ours has gotten in terms of like what counts as LGBT, what doesn't count. Like here it's definitely more of a am I gay or am I not? But here in 2017, we see it as more of a spectrum, which it's such a like heartwarming feeling to read about. To see how far things have gotten, and how much we still need to do, but how much like the people who before us have paved so far for us to be able to be here, to be out, to be able to hold hands in public, and just be so normalized. And it's just so heartwarming, like just reading this and comparing it to what I'm seeing every day when I go to work, when I walk to classes, when I openly speak about my partner. And it's just we have a lot of work to do, but we can't like forget about the work that we've already done. I also really enjoyed how it kind of shows the aftermath of coming out, and how there's a lot to lose. We see kind of both sides of it. In Cece's side, we see more tentative but still accepting. In Holland's side, we see the more violent and the more heartbreaking, and the stereotypical way of like someone being kicked out of their home and no longer being allowed to visit friends or family regardless of what's been going on. And like I said, I think that's also important to show, because there's still these things today. Teens will get kicked out, and I think it's important to remember that just because we have come so far does not mean that everything is fixed, that these problems have gone away and everything. And that was just a really kind of like humbling thing to read, if that makes sense. So as for things I didn't like, I thought that there was a very juvenile writing style, and I thought there was a very juvenile style of writing, and kind of how Holland's thoughts were portrayed. It didn't seem very realistic to me for a 17-year-old to be thinking these things, or kind of how her mind was kind of going. I thought that there could have been, she seemed, from everyone else, around her and how everyone viewed her, she seemed to have been a really mature kind of girl, and to see her thoughts be very kiddish and almost lacking in, that sense, like her saying, I didn't realize there were any gays in our school kind of thing, or even kind of her thoughts on coming out. It seemed very childish, and I didn't think it was the best way to go about it, trying to get out this like coming of age novel, and to have her be so like seeming like a child. She's like 17 going on 18, and I understand there's a lot of like differences in like going through these things, like generational divides, but there is still that sense of like you're practically an adult in terms like you're still a child, but you're gonna be viewed as an adult soon. There has to be some kind of maturity in regards to how you show these how you interpret the world around you, and she saw it in a very childish kind of manner, and I wasn't a fan of it. Half the time I was kind of just rolling my eyes and just trying to find a way to justify her thoughts, but I couldn't find a way to do it at all. I didn't get a feel for the characters. Right off the bat, you knew that she was gay. Like, of course you're gonna know because you're reading a book where she's coming out, but you didn't get the sense that this is something she has struggled with, that this is this underlying feeling deep down inside of her. You just didn't. I couldn't grasp a feel for her struggle, and and as someone who has had to come out, and as for things that I feel that I have, and other media things that I have watched or whatnot, I just didn't feel that emotional tug, and I was really disappointed because this is a really huge milestone in someone's life, and it just kind of fell a little flat, because throughout the entire novel she's always constantly going, oh, do I like her? No, I don't like her. Do I like her? I think I like her. And then the moment where she realizes it wasn't, I don't want to say like an epiphany, because sometimes it's not always an epiphany. It just didn't seem her struggle wasn't there. She seemed to have already known. Her questioning seemed to be more so her just trying to restate it for herself. Even when she says and comes out that she's in love with Cece, and that she's never been into guys, it's always been girls, we never got to see that side of her where she's questioned that throughout the years. It's always been, she's very linear, and her character progression didn't work. The rest of the cast the cast of characters fell really flat, and it really infuriated me because I expected there to be a lot more depth with these characters. Like, we've seen them grow and be close throughout the years. These are Holland's best friends, and we see Cece be this questioning figure in her life, and we still don't get that. And a lot of them don't seem to be very understanding of the situation, which I get. It's a different time, but if some of them are her best friends, and she seems to have blown them off just for the sake of being with Cece, and I don't think that was a healthy way of trying to portray her coming to this. All of her struggles seem to be very internalized. She never outwardly said it. She never tried to speak to someone about it, and I don't think that is the best way of going about things as an author or as someone who is trying to come out. You do need to talk about these things with someone, and Holland just seemed to know right off the bat, and her struggle, while understandable, didn't feel realistic to me. I had really high hopes for Cece. I thought she was going to be this really wise, intelligent, understanding character, but there was just this random plot twist at the end that just ruined her entire character for me and didn't make a ton of sense. I felt that a lot of her momentum and a lot of her strength and her being this pillar of hope for Holland kind of died down towards the end, and I didn't understand it. I thought there could have been better ways to characterize Cece with that plot twist, and this was not one of those. So as for my final thoughts, I thought this story had a lot of potential, and I do mean a lot of potential. I had really high hopes for this story, and I thought it was going to go places. I thought we were going to be given a very realistic depiction of what it means to be coming out in 2003, but it felt like a very I don't want to say it, but it's gonna come out bad. It felt like a very over dramatized fan fiction of someone who isn't in the community and just wants to kind of fantasize what it is like and show and like try. It seemed like it came from a very immature writer, which is a little disappointing considering she was a National Book Award finalist. I expected there to be a lot more depth to her characters and a lot more depth to the plot itself, and I didn't see that happening. I think that it was a really good idea, but it was really poor execution. It was very juvenile and immature for its time, and I don't think I'd recommend it to anyone. I would give this book a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I definitely expected there to be a lot more depth. It just, like I said, it just felt really flat, and I definitely would not recommend this book if you're trying to get more into LGBTQIA reads, like YA reads that are to like broaden your mind view, or however you want to put it, like contemporary wise. There are a lot of better ones out there that I think could show how to deal with these things, especially since like this is the first like lesbian romance that I've really read about. I was really disappointed to see how flat it had fallen. That's my tea on Keeping You Secret from by Julie Ann Peters. If you guys have any more thoughts, or if you guys have read the book and agree with me or disagree with me, I like to have a nice little discussion and pleasant discussion, don't be rude, in the comments below. Other than that, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Bye.